Right. Hello and welcome, FPL managers. And after the long international break, we are back. And this is the Zonal Weakness brought to you by Gone Football Fantasy, powered by Fantasy Football Scout. And of course, Bethany and Sankalp are not available today. So, unfortunately, due to the personal reasons, but that does not really stop us from doing the zonal. So, I decided to, like just go ahead myself and do the recording. So, please do let me know if you do like it, because again, I'm supposed to be the host. And of course, my two guests are supposed to be doing the talking, but unfortunately, I have to do both today. So, do let me know your feedback. And so let's get started. And this is the zonal weakness for Gimmick 8. And of course, before we get started, please do give us a follow on Twitter, a like on Facebook, but also follow on Facebook as well. And of course, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel because we are producing regular content there. So I'm sure you don't want to miss all the content that we are producing. And all the stats that you see are taken from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. If you're interested in the membership, please do click on the link in the description below and you would get 40% discount. And then you would have access to all the data, including the zonal data for the 20 teams. So, yeah, hurry. And I don't think so. You should be waiting any longer. Let's move on. First thing first is the zonal transfer review. In Gimmick 4, of course, we made the transfer suggestions. Two players, Luis Diaz and Mitoma. And as you can see in the chart here, clearly it's Luis Diaz who has scored 5.5 points per match. And I think that's pretty good given the fact that he was substituted or rotated in one or two matches. And Mitoma has scored about 3.75 points per match. Yeah, and he's still going under the radar. I think that is likely to change with the swing of bigger Brighton's fixture. So yeah, I think both the both the suggestions went pretty well in my case, at least 5.5 and 3.75. Not really as much as high as we anticipated, but still, it's pretty. I think compared to other things, I mean, other stats, I think it's still good performance. Yeah. So let's see what the table brings. And here is the table, of course, for the zonal table. And we'll be covering 16 team in this video. So please do watch if you're looking for the thing, all the 16 teams. We leave out 4 teams only in the video. And in the thread, of course, we cover only 8 teams. So let's start first with the Manchester City versus Wolves, the much anticipated one. And as you can see, Haaland is right there. In the center, Wolves have actually considered 21 chances and are ranked fifth. That's where Haaland will be playing. Foden is an interesting shout, of course. He's also likely to play in the center. But again, his position could likely change. But yeah, assuming and given the hit maps that we have seen so far, we would assume that Foden was likely to play in the center or occupy this space in the center just behind Haaland. So that's an interesting development right there. Then you have Grealish and Doku, who would be playing in the right flank. And down that right flank, of course, you would see that Wolves have actually considered 27 chances and are ranked second. So I think that's pretty interesting as well. In terms of headed considered, of course, Wolves have considered 19 chances down for in terms of headed considered and are ranked third. So that's again another interesting option given. And I think the Haaland is going to go quite big in this case. And a lot of people are really opting for the triple captain. While I would not really make a clear shout for the triple captain, but yeah, if you do fancy, given that Wolves have actually considered 21 chances down the center, yeah, it looks pretty interesting shout. Let's move on to the next fixture, which is Bournemouth versus Arsenal. And I think the only player that stands out there is Saka. So those of you who are planning to move away from Saka to Palmer, perhaps this is not the right week, at least according to the zonal. As you can see, Bournemouth have actually considered 24 chances down the left flank and are ranked fourth, and that's where Saka will be playing. So I think that's pretty interesting in terms of Saka's ownership. Moving on to the next fixture, of course, is West Ham versus Tottenham. And what's really interesting is Son's price have actually fallen, given the fact that he was flagged. But now that Ange has actually cleared that he is back in the trading. So in that right flank of West Ham, where Son will be occupying that space, West Ham have actually considered 25 chances and are ranked fourth. So Son has a very good chance of really getting some FPL points this time. And of course, he has already got two double digits over the last 7 matches. Solanke owners should be quite happy or tempted by the prospect here, as West Ham have actually considered 25 chances again down the center and are ranked fourth. So I think that makes Solanke a pretty interesting shout as well. Moving on to the next fixture, of course, it's Everton versus Leicester, and I think clearly the boy Leif Davis is standing out. So those of you who are still ignoring Ipswich Town and particularly Leif Davis, I think this is a stat that should draw your attention, particularly because of the fact that Everton have actually considered 28 chances and are ranked the worst among all 20 teams down the right flank. So that's where Leif Davis is likely to occupy. And he's been brilliant on the IS so far. So, yeah, if you're looking for a 4.5 defenders, do check out our video on YouTube. But again, this stat is itself is quite sufficient in terms of, you to make the transfer for Leif Davis. In terms of the headed considered, of course, again, Everton have considered 19 headed chances and are ranked fourth. That's where Delap is going to play. And I think Delap is not yet fully fit, but his managers have already made it very clear that once he gets his full fitness, he's likely to do well. And I think Delap gives you that kind of a flexibility. So, yeah, Delap is, again, a very good option there. Interestingly, is that 74 crosses have been conceded by Everton down the right flank. That's where again Leif Davis is going to play. So Leif Davis does not only have a chance in terms of chances considered, but also in terms of crosses considered. I think Leif Davis has the possibility of getting some FPL points there for in terms of assist. And yeah, so I think those two avenues are right there. Now, most of us are really ignoring Manchester United here, but I've seen a couple of our Twitter friends have been talking about Manchester United, particularly Rashford, but also about Bruno. And I think the zonal stats are clearly indicative of the fact that Brentford have actually considered 25 chances down the right flank and are ranked fifth. That's where Rashford is likely to occupy the space. So yeah, he looks quite pretty interesting shout given that. And then there was again one of my Twitter mates have actually shouted out Højlund, and I think it's pretty interesting now that I look at the zonal stats, given the fact that Brentford have actually considered 32 chances and are ranked second, and that's where Højlund and Fernandes are going to play. Of course, Fernandes has not shown the form, and he has underperformed to a lot of extent. I myself, being an owner, was completely burned by it. So yeah, I can understand as to why people are not really interested in Manchester United asset. But I think this is a game week that could perhaps turn the tide in Manchester United's favor. But again, being a Manchester United fan, I'm quite optimistic. But again, having a bit of a concern at the same time as an FPL manager. Garnacho is also looking promising in a sense that, Brentford have actually considered 28 chances and are ranked third. So that's another interesting option. So all the three forwards or three main players from Manchester United are looking pretty promising for the fixture against Brentford. Now, moving on to the next fixture, of course, is Brentford, and it's of course the much owned and much talked about and most hyped player Mbeumo stands out, as Manchester United have considered 24 chances down the left flank and are ranked fifth, and I think that's where Mbeumo is going to play. Wissa is back in training, I think, as per Twitter, but I'm not quite sure. But again, if Wissa is really playing, probably Mbeumo will be pushed a little bit aside. But again, that's still, we have to wait and see. Yeah. Let's move to the next slide then. And here what we see is, of course, the first one is Southampton versus Leicester. Now, Vardy is looking like a very good option, largely due to the fact that Leicester have considered, Southampton has considered actually 35 chances down the center and are ranked the worst when it comes to the center. And Bonanote, I think, again, some of my Twitter friends have been making quite a shout out about Bonanote, and I think that's pretty interesting. Justin plays that's same area, of course, in the same zone. So Justin is another shout, and he's got two double digits as well. So I think Justin is still a very good option when it comes to this particular match itself. So Leicester, on the other hand, have actually considered 27 chances down the right flank, and are ranked third. And that's where Brenton Diaz and Taylor are going to occupy space. Dibbling is an interesting shout. He was flagged, but I think it's more of a cautionary one. So Dibling is probably going to be the one who's still going to start, and I think his prospect looks quite interesting in a sense that Leicester have actually considered 35 chances down the left flank and are ranked first or worst. Sorry, are ranked worst. So that's another one. Those of you who have Archer, probably keep him in the first bench. I think that's because again, Leicester have considered 27 chances down the center and are ranked third. So I don't think so. You should be prioritizing your bench accordingly in that case. Moving on to Crystal Palace versus Nottingham, and I think it's Chris Wood who has very good chances, particularly from the headed considered point of view. As you can see, that Crystal Palace have actually considered 17 headed considered and are ranked fifth in terms of the headed considered. So yeah, again, Wood is being going under the radar, and I think he's been picked up by quite a number of FPL managers as the third option. So that's another interesting one as well. Moving on to Fulham versus Aston Villa, and I think it's Watkins in terms of the headed considered, as Fulham have actually considered 21 chances, headed chances, and are ranked second. So yeah, Watkin owners, just be careful with that one. But again, I think Fulham is showing some signs of improvement, so I think we should keep that in mind. Nottingham Forest and of course Crystal Palace. Not much really to talk about except the fact that Eze and Mitchell and of course Ismaili Assar are the ones who are standing out there in terms of the crosses considered. And I think Nottingham have actually considered 60 crosses down the right flank and are ranked fourth. And then have actually considered 75 crosses down the left flank and are ranked worst. So that's where Ismaili Assar and of course Eze and Mitchell will be occupying the space in those two flanks. So I think those are the two players that are probably really be standing out. So yeah, I think that covers more or less the 16 teams. Moving on to the next slide, of course, and it's the team of the week. Now, I think most of the players we have already touched upon, but just wanted to give you a rundown of what we see on the screen here. It's Haaland and Solanke who occupy. It's a formation of 3-5-2, and in the five midfielder spot, of course, belongs to Madison, Bruno Fernandes. It's Foden, who's an interesting shout there. Mbeumo is quite pretty owned, and Saka as well. Liv Davis, again, just wanted to draw those managers' attention who are still continuously ignoring, as he is still owned by 2.5% of the managers. So that's another one. And Mitchell and Justin, of course, I think Justin warrants a really serious consideration, at least as a fifth defender. So I think that's something that. So yeah, I think that's all for this week. Do let me know as to what you think about this video, and yeah, thank you so much for joining. And of course, we will be back next week together with Bethany. But until then, thank you so much and take care. May your arrows be green. Bye bye.